Hey guys, in this video I will teach you how to build a full-stack Airbnb clone using technologies like React, Next.js and Tailwind in the front end, and Django with Django REST framework in the back end. I'm going to use Docker Compose for the backend project with PostgreSQL and some other tags. I will also use channels for implementing live chat and a lot of other cool things. I'm going to begin with the basics of setting up everything, building the templates, and then building the project piece by piece. At the end, I'm going to deploy the project to a live server on DigitalOcean. I've put together a little demo of the project we are going to build. So, as you can see here, we have the front page. You can hover this to get a little animation. You have the menu up here. For example, if we go up to the search, we can search for Norway. Set the check-in date, for example, from the 15th to the 17th. How many guests, how many bedrooms you want, how many bathrooms, and when you search, this auto updates. You can go into one of these to get more information. You have a big picture. You can like or favorize and unfavorize your houses here. You can see information about how many guests they allow, how many bedrooms there are, how many bathrooms there are. You can see who the host is for this property and a short description, very descriptive of course. Here you can see that you can't book back in time, and also here would be showing booked dates if there were any. So here you can select the dates you want to book, and then you can use the drop down here. As you can see here, this stops at 6 because there are maximum number of 6, and then this calculates the number of nights. It adds a 5% Airbnb fee, and then you can see the total price. If you want to, you can, for example, click up here, and then you can see, whoa, okay, I'm not signed in, therefore I'm presented with the login screen. And as you can see here, this is also animated, so things go in and out smoothly. Let's try to sign up a user, Stein at code with stein.com, and then a password, sign up, and then I was logged in. And if I now click Airbnb your house, first I need to check or choose category. Then I can set the title and the description, a little bit of the price per night, for example $100, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, number of guests. I need to select location, and I can upload image and similar. And also, if I go into one of these and into the admin user, which owns these two properties, I can contact him. And then this will have a live chat, hello, and then it will show up here. And since this is live, it will automatically update at his screen if he is in this chat. You can also reach the chat by going into the user menu and into inbox, and then you will see the conversations that you have. You can see your favorites, you can see your own properties, you can see your own reservations, and you can edit your profile. So hopefully you will learn a lot of cool things if you go through this tutorial together with me. Anyways, enough chit chat now. Let's start building the to-do list so that you can see what we are going to go through in this tutorial. Django B&B to-do list. Before we start coding and similar, I want to create a simple to-do list over everything that we are going to do in this project. So the first task would be to install and set up Next.js and create project. When we have this, I want to start building the menu, which you can see up here. This one with the logo and this search here, where you can add your home to Airbnb, and the user menu. So code for nav bar. So I'm going to first build this very statically, and then we will implement one and one part, but it's nice to have all of the design finished at the beginning. And when that is done, I want to create these categories down here. So categories on the front page. And when that is done, I want to list properties on the front page. Static. So we just hard code them. So then this will be these ones with the heart icon, an image, a title, and the price per night. And when this is done, I want to create the detail page for properties. Static. And when that is done, I want to have a landlord page. Static. Well, that means that you can click on the host or the landlord, and then you will see a little bit information. You will see a contact button, and you will also see all of the properties that this landlord has. After that, I want to create a simple page for my reservations, and then my properties. Then after this, we can set up the inbox page for the conversations or the chat with the users. Sorry, all of these are going to be static. Like that. And then the detail page for chat, statically. And then when this is done, we can fix this one. So this pop-up where you can register and log in. So user menu pop-up, we can call it that. After that, I want to build a reusable modal window. So create reusable modal window. And after that, I want to create a log in or sign in modal, and then a sign up modal. And these are just going to be statically, of course. Remember error codes, just so that we can show what it will look like if you have any errors when you're signing up or logging in. And when this is done, almost all of the front end design should be finished. After that, we can begin working on the back end. So let me just create a new to-do list, and then I want to set up Docker and create a project for Django. With PostgreSQL, etc. And when this is done, I want to start working on the authentication a little bit. At least I want to create a user model, which we're going to reuse throughout this whole project. So create user model, and configure this. Because we want special fields like the avatar name instead of first name, last name. I want to make it possible to log in with email, etc. And then when we have this, we can create app for properties, so that we have that. And we need to create a serializer and model. So create model and serializer for properties. And the serializer comes from the Django REST framework. So install drf, course headers, etc. So you're going to handle authentication with JWT, so need a few other packages as well, but I will come back to that when we come to this task. And when we have the model and serializer for the properties, then we can get properties in the front end and list them. So instead of then having the static front page, we will go to this one. And then after that, we can implement authentication. Log in, we'll begin with that, and then sign up and log out. So that's basically the authentication. We will come back to edit profile and similar later in this project. And then when we have authentication in place, I want to start working on making it possible to add properties. from Next.js and not just in the admin interface, which we will do up here just for testing. Create modal. We're going to have a modal with navigation, so we can go step by step for this. API endpoint, and we're also going to need to send data from the front end to the back end. And then in here, sorry, not in here, but after that's done, I want to work on the detail page for properties. I want to make it possible to book a property, book property, and I want to make the landlord page dynamic, and then we can continue with the my properties dynamic. We want to create a page for my reservations, which we did up here, so my reservations dynamic. And when that's done, we can start working on the conversations and make that dynamic. Make conversations dynamic. And when we have this, we can start working on the real-time chat application, because we want to make it possible to chat real-time between the people who are renting a place and the people who are renting it out. So set up WebSockets in the backend, and then we are going to make it possible to connect, and I want to make it possible to send, receive messages. The messages should be stored in the backend, so store and load messages. Start new conversation. Yes. So before we jump into this, we can also make it, maybe not here, but before we go here, we can make it possible to favorite, set property as favorite, and my favorites page with listings, where you can also unlike or unfavorite them if you want to do that. Okay, so then most of this should be ready, but then we should jump over to the search. So when you go through here where you want to search, adding the dates and similar. So if I just go back to my to-do list, which is here in Eraser, then we can set up search filters. So I want to add some sub-to-dos here. Modal for search filter, and I want to make it possible to search with countries, country search, and then calendar for check-in, check-out, dates, and search details. This will be a number of guests, bedrooms, etc. We need an API endpoint for this. And then I want to make it possible to choose between these categories. Choose between categories on the front page, like that. And when that is done, then we have a simple clone of Airbnb. So we will have all the functionalities here, as you saw in the demo before. So when this is done, we can continue to the last main task, which will be deployment. So I want to create a server on DigitalOcean and set it up. We can also begin by setting up GitHub for the code repo, so that's easier to maintain and similar, makes it easier to deploy. Yes, so when we have the server, everything is set up. We can begin with the back end. And for the backend, I want to create environment. Maybe I want to use Docker here as well. Get code from Git, and we need to set up supervisor and Nginx and similar, so just a rest of server stuff. And then the front end. Then we need to set up everything here with Node and Nginx, etc. Get code from Git. So that is basically it. So we might do some changes to this to-do list when we go through it, but in overall, this is what we're going to go through in this video. Anyways, enough chit-chat now about what we're going to do. Let's start installing and setting up Next.js. So first I want to create a folder in my projects folder called Django BNB, which will be the name of this project. So just run mkdir Django BNB. Next I want to go into it, and then I'm going to go into the browser in the next documentation just to see the command that I need to run to install and create my first project. So you actually have it here. npx create -next-app at latest. So this will just start a wizard for creating a new next project. So just type Django BNB. I want to use TypeScript. I do not need ESLint for this project. And yes, I want to use Tailwind. No, I do not need the source folder. I like to just keep everything in the app folder. And yes, I want to use the router. And no, I do not need to customize the default import alias. So then I can just hit enter and this will install. As you can see up here, I just used the default values that came from Next because this is what I want to do. So then I can just wait for this to finish like that. Great. So then I can go into the next project by typing cd Django BNB, and there you have it. Now we have a simple and empty next project, so we can run it and test it and see that it is working. So npm run dev. So then it's starting, attention, blah blah blah. It says that it's ready, so we'll just copy this, go to Chrome, open a new tab and paste, hit enter. So then you can see the default application. You can see documentation. If you want to do that, you can read about the templates, how to deploy and similar. So I just want to clean up this project and remove all of this boilerplate code. So if I go to Visual Studio Code, I can actually open the project here. So then I have Django BNB, which was the main folder, and then the subfolder, which is the next project. So let's open that, and then we have everything here. Almost everything is located inside the app folder. For example, you have the global CSS, which holds Tailwind at the top here. So it comes default with Tailwind because I chose in the wizard that I wanted to use that. So I can just remove everything there and save. And you can see that it auto-updated here. And the background is now gone, a little bit like that. The layout is almost like the base.html in Django, if you're familiar with that. So you have the HTML tag, the body tag, which contains the children, which is sort of like a block tag, or where everything from the sub template is rendered. Here you can change the name of the browser tab if you want to do that. So Django BNB, then it's automatically refreshed. Perfect. And then everything here can just be like it is. We don't need to do anything more here. If you want to change the font, you can import a different one here and use that. Let me just open up page.tsx, which is the front page, and the tsx is the file ending that we want to use when you're using TypeScript. And we use or the X is there just because I'm not quite sure how to explain or what the reason is, but I know that when you have TSX, I think it's because you have also JSX, which is the sort of template language that is used here. So then I can remove everything in here, everything inside this main, and I can just set this to be empty, and then Django BNB save. So then you have it there, perfect. And I don't think there are any more boilerplate code, no. Inside the public, you can see here that I have two logos. We can go ahead and delete these two. Move to trash, and Vercel, move to trash. Okay, so then it's as basic and simple as it can get. Inside this Tailwind configuration, we don't need this background image here, but maybe we want to extend the colors and say Airbnb, which is then the red color that we want to use many places. This one, let's see if I get the hash code for that. Oops, my internet is down. Okay, let me just close this. I can go back to the color. I know what the code is, so if I just go in here, paste it, and I also want the Airbnb dark, so we have a little bit darker version of this red color. And I think these should be in tuples like this, Airbnb dark. Okay, so now these are then extended so we can use them in the project. So we can try to do that. H2 class name, and we use class name instead of just class since this is JSX. Then I can say text Airbnb Django and next rules. Go to the browser. Now you can see here that this has the red color from Airbnb. Perfect. Okay, let's go to the to-do list now and set the first task here to done, because now we have installed everything that we needed. We have created a project and we have cleaned up everything. We have set up the color, so now everything should be ready and we can start working on the navigation bar. Before I continue, I just want to say thanks to all of my patrons. If you too want to support me, you will find a link in the description below. By the way, the reason why I like to use this program here is because I have the to-do list here. I can also draw here. I can set up diagrams and similar, so it's much easier for me to explain how things are connected and similar. Anyways, let me start with working on the navigation bar. So let's jump back here. So if I go in here now, then I do not want this located on the front page, and I don't need to do anything more here, and the globals can just be closed. I want to have it located here in the layout. But to keep things as clean as possible, it's best to have this rendered in a separate component. So here in the app folder, I want to create a new folder called components, and components are reusable small pieces of code. We're not going to reuse the navigation bar any places, but it's much better to have this separated in smaller chunks. And then in here, nav bar, and also a file in there called navbar.tsx. So then here I can just create this first as simple as possible. So const navbar equals, create the arrow function, return, and then here we render HTML. So nav test. Now you just need to export default navbar and save. And now this can be imported into this file and reused down here in the template. So below these imports here, we can say import navbar, and I can just hit enter, and VS Code will find this path for me automatically. So it's in the components folder, navbar, which is the name of this file, but also what you're exporting down there. You can see here that it is declared, but it's never read. So I haven't used it down here, that's why I get that little warning. But if I go down here now, fix these indentations, and then above children, I can just say navbar and close it like that. So if I save now, go back, you can see here that we get test on the top. And if I inspect this, then you can see here that I get the navigation bar there. Nice. So then we can start adding a little bit more to the navigation bar. If you remember from the demo, this is filling out the whole screen and it's fixed to the top. It has a certain spacing and similar. So inside here we can begin by saying class name and say w-full, so we know that it's filling out the whole screen. Fixed, so that it's fixed on the top of the screen when you're scrolling and similar. And then we need to set something called top-0 because we want this to be 0 pixels from the top and 0 pixels from left. That means that it's then up in the corner here and it will fill out the whole screen. Inside here I want some space above and below, so I can say py, which is then padding in the vertical direction, 6, and border b, because I want to have a 1 pixel border at the bottom. I can set the background to white. Since this is now fixed, if I didn't set the background, it would be transparent. And then set, z10, because I want the C index to be larger, higher than other things, so it doesn't come back in behind things. So now you can see that the content from the main, it's still here, but now it's behind the navigation bar. So we need some space on this main here so that we know that it's below this menu. And I want to just create a new div around this main that I can put this in. So div class name pt32. I think that should be enough. And then we can wrap the children inside this div. So if I save now, go back, you can see that I got a little bit too much space. I want this to be up here somewhere. So 26 maybe, that is not a correct number. 24, yes, that's better. So now we have a fixed menu, and you can see when I scroll in the content here, the menu doesn't move. Nice. And then inside here I want to set the max width to 1500 pixels and center it on the screen. So if I just go back to navbar, then inside here I want to create a new div, and give this a class name and say max-w and pass in 1500 pixel hard coded, but Tailwind will fix this for us and make it better. So to center it on the screen we can say max-auto, and I want to have some spacing on the sides so that when we make the screen smaller it will have always some space on the side. So px-6, just add some random information here, go back, and you can see that I got the px6 there, and when I take the screen very small it's still working, yes. My screen isn't wider than 1500 pixels because I have the resolution very low now since I'm recording. And then on the left side I want to have a logo, and on the right side I want to have a menu, and on the middle I want to have a menu. So we need to set up a flex box from Tailwind. So div class name, give this a class of flex and justify between. So all of the spacing will be added between the logo, the center menu and the right menu. That's what justify between means. And items center. And I items center because if the logo is a little bit big, then all of the other elements on the menu here will be on the same height. So then we can create a link to the front page which will hold the logo. So link href can just be slash Django BNB. So now I get a warning because cannot find name link. So we need to import this. So import link from next/link and save. So if I go back now, I have a link, and if I click it, I will be sent to the front page. But nothing happens now because, yes, we were already on the front page. And then, instead of this title, I want to replace this with logo. So if I go into the public folder, then I can just paste in the logo. So I have a file called logo.png, which is the Airbnb logo. You can copy it from the front page of Airbnb, or you can just go to Google and search for it, or use whatever image you want there. Or you can go to my repository on GitHub. You can find a link in the description below, and you can copy the logo from there. So then I go back here, and I want to insert an image here. So image source, src, and this is then located in /logo.png, and slash will then point to the public folder here, and then we have logo.png there. I need to close this, and then okay, does not support blah blah blah. I need to import the image, so import image from next/image, and I still get the warning here because the alt attribute is missing. Alt Django BNB logo, and I also want to specify a default width and height here, so I can say width, and then you specify here 180, and we can specify a height as well, 38. So then this is now default sizes, but Next.js will actually do some changes to us here. So when the screen is smaller, you can see that it will be responsive. Nice. I like this size on the menu, but now you can see that the content here is below or behind. So let's go back to layout TSX and change this to 32. Yes, so that's much better. So then we have that. Yes, we have the logo, we have a link to the front page. Perfect. In the middle of the screen, I want the search filters. So I want to create a div first for this. So div class name flex space -x6, because I want some space between the elements inside this sub menu, or what you want to call it. Search filters, blah blah blah. Now it's all the way over there, and the reason why it's there and not on the middle of the screen is because we are using this justify between. So this will now take all of the space available and put it here, sort of. But when I create one more where this user menu will be, div class name flex items center and space -x6, because we want to here have the add property button and also the user navigation bar. So I use the item center so that I know that they are on the same height, and space -x6 so there are some spacing between them. So here you can see add property and user nav. So when I save now, you can see that the search filter is moved to the center, and we have the add property on the right side there. Perfect. Okay, so if I go back now, instead of adding the search filters here, I want to have the search filters in a separate component. So in the same folder as this one, we can create one more file. So new file, search filters.tsx. And now we do the same thing here. Const search filters, create the arrow function for this, return search. Cannot find name. Okay, sorry. Every time you use this return function, you need to put things inside an HTML element, or you can use an empty fragment if you want to do that. And I just say export default search filters and save. Now we can import it here. Import search filters from .search filters, and it just says .search filters because we are in the same folder as this file. So then in here I can just say search filters and close it. And now we are back to this one, but the information comes from here. Search. Nice. Okay, so let's actually design this and add show information about what dates you have selected and similar. So if I go back here now and into the navigation bar, into the search filters. We can begin by adding a div here instead of this empty fragment. So div, and set the class name for this. I want a specific height, which is 64 pixels, and I just need to add these in these brackets. And I want this to be a flex box, so we need to add flex and flex row, because I want elements to be on the same line. I want to have them on the same height as well, so items center and justify between, so that all of the space that is available will be added between each of these. And I want the border on this one, and I want to just say border. It will add the 1 pixel border around the whole thing, and the border will be a grayish color. And I want this to have a rounded corners, so rounded full. Then on the next line here we can just add some text to see that it is working. Close the div. Yes, you can see here that we got the specific height. We have the gray color on the border, and it's rounded full, so it can't be any rounder than that. The first element on the left side should be the one where we select location. So we can begin by creating a new div. This can just have no class for now, because I want to add some mobile friendly classes to that in a little while. But we can create one more div in here. Div class name flex row, because I want to have things on the same line. Items center and justify between again. Like that. Okay, so I can close this div, and then we can add the where label. So div class name. I want to have a fixed width on this one, so 250 pixels, and a fixed height. So height should be 64 pixels. px8, so I have some space on each of the sides. This should also be a flex box, so flex, but here I want the flex to be columns, and I want the corners to be rounded full here as well. And when you hover this element, I want the background of it to be gray, so hover bg gray 100, where, just save. Then you have the where, and when I hover over this, the background becomes gray. Nice. But I want this text to be on the middle of this one as well. So since we have flex, we can just say justify center. So that will then send things to the center of this one. Okay, but this doesn't look good, so we need to add some more to this label. So p class name text extra small or XS font semi bold. where, question mark, or no, just where. And we want to have a subtitle here as well. So class text SM small, so it's a little bit larger, and then wanted location. So we're going to fix this later. Nice. So then it's very small, and this is a little bit bigger. Like that. And then we can actually just make a copy of this one. So copy this and replace the title there with check in. Wanted add dates. Paste it one more time for the check out. Add dates and save. So now we have 3 to choose between here. Nice. And we also want to have a who, because we want to select the guests. So I can paste this one more time. Who, question mark, no. Add guests. Okay, so it starts to look like something. I do not think that all of these should have this width. Actually, it's just the first one, so let me just remove this one. And by the way, to select multiple cursors, you can just hold in Option on my Mac. Not sure what it is on Windows. So if I save now, it looks a little bit better. Perfect. Last but not least, I want a search SVG here. So we can begin by creating one more div here. Div. This should not be located there. It needs to be outside these two divs here. So div class p-2, because we want some spacing on this button. And then inside there, I want one more div, class name, p-4. So this is then sort of a border around the button, and this is inside the button. BG Airbnb. So it's red, and I want this to be rounded full, so it's completely around. And I want the text to be white. S. Yes, but we don't want it to say S, we want to have a simple SVG here for the search icon. So we can find this on, for example, hero icon, or you can maybe just go to the Airbnb front page and take it there. So for example here, I can just right click this one, and let's copy this, add it as HTML, copy everything, and paste it in there. So I think this might give some errors, so we can remove this, we don't need it. Style, the string has no properties in common. We don't usually do this here in Next.js or React, so let's just remove this and see if it works. So save, go back into there, and the icon isn't there. Let's take back the styling, and then it's not working. Okay, I need to convert this to a different format. Like that. Fill none. This should be a comma. This should be a comma. And not 16 pixels, but just 16 pixels. Remove the semicolon. We can do the same thing here. 16 pixels. Stroke, and everything here needs to be in tuples. If not, this will not work. You need to set this with capital W. And there. And then I can just close that one, and I can remove there. So let's add these two separate lines so it's a little bit easier for you to see. like that. And if I make this full screen now, you'll probably see most of this if I zoom out at least. So then the SVG with the styling that's converted now to TSX or JSX format. Okay, there. Let's just do this. So if I save now, go back, we now have the search icon there. Perfect. I want to have a hover effect on this as well. So there, where's a BG Airbnb? You can say hover BG Airbnb dark. And we can say transition, so we get a nice animation effect. So if I take the mouse over now, you can see that it's dark and it has a little bit of a transition. You can see the cursor is a little bit weird on this, so we can change that as well. So cursor pointer, it's because I'm using a div, but now we get the typical hand. And I want this to be on this, 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 and this as well. Okay. Problem now is that if I make this smaller, you can see here it's not working on mobile devices. On mobile devices I just want to hide these ones so that we just see the search icon that will toggle modal later. So that's what I wanted this div here for. So here I can just say class name hidden, so then it's hidden on small devices, but if the device is large or greater, we say block. So if I save now, you can see here I'm on a small screen, so it's showing up like that, but when I make this larger, the menu comes back. Nice. Okay, so now we have the search filters there as well. On my to-do list, yes, everything in this is a part of this nav bar, yes. So then the last bits here is the user navigation bar and the button for adding the property. So we can begin by the user navigation. So let's go back, create one more component, call this user nav.tsx. So const user nav return p user export default user nav. I get a warning here because I forgot to add the equal sign like that. So I can just close that one, and then I can import this as well into the nav bar. Import user nav and replace this one like that, user nav, and save. So now I still have the user here, but it comes from this component. Nice. So I can begin by replacing this with a div, give it a class name of p-2 because I want some space in here, and I want to set this to be a relative because I need to do that later when we are showing up the pop-up. I want to set this to an inline block as well. And I want a border here. So border and rounded dash full. So if I add something in here now, save, go back, you can see that we get the rounded and similar. This does not need to be 64 pixels height or tall. In here, I want to have a button, and when you click that, I want this menu to pop up, but we're not going to build the menu right now, but we want to have the button. So button, give this a class name of flex and items center, and in here I want to have two different SVGs. Close the button, and I think I just want to go to hero icons to get these two. So if I go to the browser, heroicons.com, search up menu, I want this one, the bars 3, paste it, I will fix this soon, and then I want the user, so we can take this one here. Then I can just close this. So if I then go back, I can paste that. So then I have the burger or the lines and then the user there. So this needs to be fixed a little bit because since this is JSX, we do not support lower caps like this. So we need to rename this to stroke line cap. We can remove this here on both of these. Strike line join, rename like that. Stroke width, and let's scroll over here. We can't use class, you need to use class name and class name. So this then get the current color just comes from up here, but let's save this now and see what it looks like. So then we have the lines there and the user there. Great. And yes, I think that's everything we're going to do for the user menu right now. Last then is the add property, or the one you see here. Legg ut hjemmet ditt på Airbnb, which is Norwegian for Airbnb your home. So I want this as well to be a component. And as you can see here, I'm very fond of using many components for smaller things. And this is kind of the way React and Next want you to structure a project, because then you can have states and similar just for this component, and it's much easier to maintain the code and similar. So up here, Airbnb, or no, let's call it the add property button.tsx, and then we can begin by creating the const for this. So const add property button equals, create the arrow function, return, and button, just so, no, not but, button, and export default add property button and save. I can close the user bar and import this here. I can actually just say, for example, add property button, and if I hit enter now, then this was automatically imported by Visual Studio Code, but then I still need to close this down here. This is some very good magic that happens, that I don't need to import this myself. I'm not sure which extension does this for me. Here you can see a list of the extensions I have. So it's not very many that I use. I didn't specifically install anything, so it might be just because that you can see down here that the language is TypeScript JSX, that it understands this for me. Anyways, let's go back to the project and see here that you see the button. Nice. So I want some space and similar for this one. So let's create a new div here. Give the class name of p-2 and text sm. So the text is small in here. I want the font to be semi-bold. So font semi-bold. And I want the corners to be rounded full, which you will not see now. But if you hover this, I want the background to be BG gray 200. Airbnb, or sorry, Django BNB your home. Not your hoe. So if I go back now, you can see there, and I hover it, you can see that it gets the background color. I just need to fix the cursor here as well. So cursor dash pointer and save. Nice. So if I now make this smaller, you can see that this is still working on smaller devices. You can customize this more if you want to do that. Maybe you can have this smaller on mobile devices. Then you just go back here into the search filters, and for example, instead of where do I have this one? It's here. Height. Yes, instead of saying P4, I can just say P2. Then you see here, it's much smaller. And then on larger screens, we can say P-4. So when I now make this screen larger, the button is also larger. And I can make this, instead of saying 64 pixels tall, we can set the height to be, for example, 48. Yes, that's better. And on large screens, H-64. So if I now just copy this and replace it with these 3 or 4 here, paste and save, then it looks a little bit better even on smaller devices. Yes, because now it's smaller. You could also make this smaller, you could make this smaller and similar. Anyways, I hope you understand what you can do here. Okay, like that. Then I can actually go to the to-do list and set the next task to done. Okay, so the next task then is to set up the categories on the front page. So that's the list of these here. So let me just go back to the project and into Visual Studio Code. Okay, so once again, I want this inside a separate component, but this component should be not in the nav bar because it's a part of the front page and not a part of the navigation bar. I'm not going to have more than one property there, so more than one component, so I can just create it in the components folder and call it categories.tsx. And then we can say typical const categories equals create arrow function return p categories export default categories. Oops. Like that. And then to add this to the front page, I open up page.tsx, and here I don't need to import this anymore because we are not using it there. So I can instead say import categories, and then I can remove these two and say categories like that. If I save now, it's there. I want this to be maximum width of 1500 pixels as well. So if I open up navbar and just copy these 3 classes there, and then I can paste it in there. So now it has the same spacing on the left side. Perfect. So, but I want to list them out looking like this with a little icon, the title, and then you have this hover effect here. So then you can just close this, go back in here, and then I go remove this paragraph that I added, create a new div, and here I need some space from these and up to the menu. So I need this class name, set pt3 for padding top 3. You can set the cursor to be the cursor pointer when you have it all over this div here, cursor pointer, padding bottom 6, so I have some space at the bottom of this, and I want to have this flex box, and set the items to be centered in case some of there are multiple lines and similar. We are still having them on the same line when you use this items center. Space dash x12, so there's a space between each of the categories. So let's create one category first. Div class name, and then here I want some padding bottom on this as well, so pb-4, and the reason I want some padding bottom here is because the space between the title and this hover line or active line. So pb-4, we can set this to be a flex box and flex col, because we don't want these to be on a row, we want them above, below, like this, above each other. Items center, because I want to center everything inside this div. Space dash y dash 2, so that we get the space between the icon and the title. And border b dash 2, so border bottom set to be 2 pixel height or thick, as you can see there. And the color, default color can be white, so border white. And I want the opacities to be set to 60, but when you hover this element, we can set the opacity to be 100. So let's just add some random thing in there for testing. You can see here that it's a little bit gray because it has some low opacity, but if I take the mouse over, you can see that it becomes dark. Perfect. And then I want the icon on top there, so maybe I can just copy this. This is actually image address. Okay, let me save this icon so I can find out where I want this. So documents, project, Django DNB, public, and then we can say ICN category and save. And then we can insert it by saying image, src, and the path for this will be just like the logo. If you remember there, we just say /logo, so the same thing is here, /ICN category.png, and alt category beach. I want this to be the beach category. Close it, and I get the error because we haven't imported this. So import image from next/image and save. So let's see what's going on here now. Image with source is missing required width property. Okay, width say 20, and height can also be 20. Maybe that's okay. That did not work. ICN category. Okay, let me just try again. I think it was because I didn't have internet, but take på stranden, which is Norwegian for on the beach. So let me save this again. ICN category beach. And yes, then I can go back here and just rename this to ICN category beach. So if I then go back here again, so if I go back again, I can see I still get an error, and it's because it's a .jpeg and not PNG. So JPEG, save, automatically refresh, and then we have the category image there. Perfect. So then we just want the title below this. So to get the title, we just say span, class name, and text-xs, and beach. So then we have that one. Perfect. When we hover this one, I want the underscore or the line to be gray. So I need to add that as well. So we have already fixed the opacity, and the border is set to be white there, but if I hover border gray 200. So then we get the line there. Perfect. So then I can go back and make a copy of this one. Paste it. Can have 4 categories. So we have the beach, we can have villas, and we can have cabins and tiny homes. Save. So now we have 4 different categories here that you can hover and look at. Nice. So if I then go to the to-do list, I can set this to done. And this is of course just static. Nothing happens when we click on them, but we will come back to that later. I can maybe zoom a little bit here so it's easier for you to see. Okay, so the next step then is to set up the list of properties on the front page. So since we like to have things in components, we can begin by creating a new folder inside components here called properties, and then a new file called propertylist.tsx, and the typical const property list equals, create the arrow function, return p property list, blah, blah. Export default property list and save, and then we add this to the page.tsx, which is located in the app folder. So now we can begin by importing it. Import property list, and then just below here we can just say property list. So if I save now and go back to the project here, you can see that we get this text here, but it doesn't make any sense. But also for each of the properties I want to have a separate component, so we create one more file, property list item.tsx. Then we create it and just copy everything there, paste list item, and item, save. So if I now save, nothing happens, but let's import this into this file here and say import property list item, and then we can insert a few of these. So property list item, and property list item. I get a warning here now because JSX expression must have one parent element, so we can add an empty fragment here. Close the empty fragment like that. It could be a div if you wanted to, but this will not render anything in the browser, so it's kind of better to just have it like this. Okay, so then I have the three items like this, but we want them in a grid. So so if I go back here now and into page.tsx, around this property list here, I want to have a new div, so div class, and we can say empty-4 so we get some space up to the different categories. And I want this to be a grid, and I want to when you have on the mobile phone, we have one column of properties, so grid calls 1, so this is mobile first, as it always is with Tailwind. On medium devices we can say grid calls 3, and on large devices we can say LG grid calls 5. So then we get 5 properties next to each other. Now we set the gap to 6, and then Tailwind will automatically add space in there for us. So then we just paste this in there and save. And if I go back now, we can see here that this fills out 1/5 of the screen, 1/5 and 1/5. Nice. Okay, so I can just close this file because I'm not going to do anything more there. But for each of these property list items, I want to show an image and I want to show a title, etc. So we can begin by removing this, creating a new div and calling it, or sorry, giving it the class name of cursor-pointer. And then in here I want one div for the top up here where you see the image and this one. So a div class name relative. Sorry, let's not add relative quite yet, but we can say overflow-hidden and aspect square. So now Tailwind will automatically generate a square for us based on the width, and rounded-XL. because we want rounded corners on the image. And then is an image, and here we can add a property called fill, so it fills out this whole square automatically. Source can be slash. I have prepared a few images. If you go to GitHub, link in the description below, you can find images there in my repositories, or you can just go to Unsplash or similar and find some images there yourself. So I have profile pictures, and I have images for all of the houses, etc. So I just want to take one image now, because this is just hard-coded, so I don't want more images than I need. So beach1.jpg, beach-_1.jpg, and then we need to set the sizes for this so that Tailwind can generate and make this more optimized for mobile phones, etc. So sizes, like that with tuples. And max width, so for small devices, that will say all devices that has a max width of 768 pixels, we want the width of the image to be 400 pixels, or we can say 768 pixels, just to keep this clean and simple. If the max width is 1200 pixels, then we can also use 768 pixels, and the default one can also be 768 pixels. I'm not very familiar with why we need to do this, but yes, Tailwind or JSX says so. And we need to add some class names to this. So hover, and when we hover this, we want to scale this up to 110%, so it's a little bit bigger inside the square. Object cover, so it talks to this one and fills out the whole box. Transition, so we get a nice effect. H-full and V-full, just so that you know that image fills out the whole of this square. And we need an alt tag, so alt beach house. We can close the image. We just need to import image again, so import image from next image. Save. So if I go back here now, you can see that this fills out the whole screen. And that's because we didn't add a relative here, and that's needed in order for this fill attribute to work. So now we have this, and we have the cool hover effect where it scales up the image a little bit. Nice. So, for example, the overflow hidden prevents us from going out of this square. The aspect square makes this a square box. And then you have the scale when you hover it with the mouse, etc. Here we also want a simple heart icon. I will come back to that soon. But below here, we can add one more div for the title. So div, class name, margin top 2. I want this to be a flex, so it fills out the whole screen. Actually, it doesn't need to be a flex box. And in here, p class name, text LG, so it's a little bit big, and font bold, property name. Save. So then we get the property name here, in a little bigger font than other places. And then below there, I want to show the prices. So div class empty-2, p class name, text SM, so it's a little bit smaller, and we can say strong for the price, so for example $200, and in the regular width per night. Okay, great. Maybe this can be a little bit gray as well, so text gray 700, maybe even a little bit brighter. Yes, perfect. Okay, so now we have a simple component for this. Everything here is still hard coded, but we will make it dynamic later in this course. So I think I can just go to the to-do list and set this task as well to done. Okay, so next step then is to set up the detail page for a property. So we can begin by creating the page. So close these two, and then to handle routing and similar, Next.js wants us to put pages in folders. So we can create a folder called, not in the components, sorry. In the app folder, we create a folder called properties. And then that will be, for example, the list of properties or just the front page. But if we want a dynamic URL, we need to create a folder like this. So then we have the ID, then this is a parameter that we can get inside the file. And then in this folder, we created one more called page tsx. So now Next will fix everything here for us with the routing and the URLs and similar. So the URL for this page can, for example, be /properties/abcd/. And when we go to that page, this template will load. So here we can say const property detail page equals, create the arrow function, return, a property blah blah blah, export default property detail page. So I like to add the page at the end of all of my pages, just so it's easier to separate them from the components. And then this actually exists already now. So if I just go, for example, to properties / just some random things, then I will see this there. Awesome. So just like we have a main class here, we can copy this main. As you can see here, just copy this from the front page and paste it in there. Fix the indentation, close the main, and then it's indented as everything else here. Great. On the top of this page, I want to begin with an image of a property. Okay, so we can begin with the image on the top inside the code. So if I just remove this paragraph that we added just for testing, then we can say div class name and pass in w-full, so it fills out the whole screen. The age-64, sorry, we need the curl, the brackets, 64vh, 64vh. So it's a little bit tall, and we can set the overflow hidden, because we need to do that to get rounded corners, rounded-xl, and set this to be relative as well. Just like we did on the other place where we used an image inside a div. So then I can say image. We need to import this again. Import image from next/image. The source can be /beach-1.jpg. I want this to fill out the screen again, and set the class name to be object-cover, w-full and h-full. And the last but not least, the alt tag, so beach house, and close the image. So if I save now and go back, you can see that it fills out the whole screen because the w-full. The height is 64vh. I'm not 100% sure what that stands for, but it's based on the height of your screen. Overflow and around the corners, like you see there. Object cover, so it fills out the whole thing. Nice. Below this image, I want the screen to be separated. I want 1 part of the screen to be information about the property, and on the right side I want the booking form and similar. So I want to introduce and use grid again, so div class name empty-4, so I get some space up to this image. Grid calls 1 on smaller devices, and on large devices or medium and above we can say md-grid calls 5. Set the gap to be 4, so we get some automatic spacing between these. Now we can begin with the one on the left side, div class name call span 3, so that it takes 3 of these 5 available. And I want some spacing above and below this, so py-6, and I want some more spacing on the right side, so pr6. Sorry, like that, left side, and then we can create the one on the left side as well. Div class empty-4. No, that is not correct. Div right. I will come back to that because that's going to be a separate component. So anyways, let's continue with this one. We want the title at the top of this one. So h1 class mb-4 text for Excel. And then we can just say property name, close it. So that's the title of this house. Below here I want some information about how many guests you can have, how many bedrooms there are, and similar. So span class name mb-6 block text XL, or LG might be big enough, text gray 600. Now we can say guests. How many guests can we have here? 4, or maybe for example 4 guests dash 2 bedrooms 1 bathroom. Save. Nice. Then we have a little bit information there. Below this one I want the HR just for separation between this and the landlord information. So we can create a div just for this one and say class, div class name py-6. Set this to be a flex box, and I want the items to be next to each other and on the same height. So items center and space -x4, so we get some automatic space between these. On the left side here I want the image of the landlord or the host, so image src slash user profile image. I haven't added this yet. And then I want to add a profile pic, so I just need to add this to the project. Django BNB demo images, then I have a profile pic there, and we can paste it like that. Profile pic 1.jpg. Again, if you want this, you can find them in my repository. Set the width to be 50. Width like that, 50. Set the height to be 50. Give this a class name of rounded-full, so it's completely round, and alt the user name. Then we can close the image and save. So we can just go and see here that you see the profile picture of this landlord, and on the right side here I just want to say the name is your host. So we can add a new paragraph here, p strong for the name, John Doe is your host. Later I want to make this clickable so that you can go into the landlord page, see if there has more properties, and even contact them. Yes, so below this one, HR again, so we get the horizontal ruler. And then below here, I want the description of the house or the property. So p class name, empty-6 and text lg. Lorem ipsum blah 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 blah. Just add some random information here. Save, go back, and then you can see here the description of the house. Perfect. And then on the right side, I want a component for the reservation sidebar, as I wanted to call it. So we can begin by just adding it here, like this. Reservation sidebar. Close it. So if I save it now, I will get an error. Reservation sidebar is not defined. So let's try to define it. Reservation. So it can't be found because we haven't created it. So let's create it. This can also be inside the properties. So new file, reservation sidebar.tsx. Const reservation sidebar equals, create this as an arrow function, return p, export default reservation sidebar. Then we can try to import it again. Import reservation sidebar, yes, save. And then we got it here on the right side. Perfect. So then we can code it. If I go here, I can see that I have a margin top 4 there. I can just remove it. And on this image, you can rather say MB-4. Nice. Then here, I want to replace this with an HTML element called aside, which is typically used for sidebars. Can close it like that. And we want some styling on this one. So class name. And we want spacing above and below and on the left side and right side. So just say p-6. And we can say col span 2. So it takes 2 of these 5 here when they are available. If not, it will just fill out the whole screen. You can set the rounded corner to be rounded-XL. And I want the border here, and I want the border to be border-gray 300 shadow-XL, so that we get some shadow on this. Nice. Should maybe go a little bit further down, so empty-4. That's better. Maybe we can say empty-6, so they are more on the same line. Nice. You can see here that it goes all the way down to the bottom of the screen. So I want some space for this as well. You can add this to this main PB6. So we can have some spacing at the bottom there. It's a little bit better. On the top here, I want to show the price per night. So we can use the h2 element class MB-5, so we get some space below this and down to the calendar, which we will come back to. Text 2 times XL and 200 per night. Save. Then we see the price per night. Perfect. Then we can create a very simple select list. So create a div which you want to wrap around this form. Div class name MB-6 padding 3, so we get this under all around border and border gray 400, so you get the bordered color on this one. Rounded XL. Just save it. We'll see what it looks like. This will be then around the guests and the dates. Just go back here and insert a select. So select class name w-full, so it fills out this whole box. margin left 1, but we add minus here because we want to pull it a little bit more to the left side. And text SM, and then we can add some dummy options here. So option 1, oops, 2, 3, 4. Let's look at it. Yes, then we have the select list here. Great. We should have a label above this so that we know what we actually are selecting. So inside this div you can say label, class name, block, and font bold, and text access, so it's not too big. So guests, space between these like that. Then you can see here that we are now selecting guests. Great. Maybe we should have a little bit spacing between these. So on this here we can say MB-2. Nice. And then below here I want a simple booking button that will only be showing if you are not visiting your own properties, but we will come back to that later. So below this div we can say div class name w-full MB-6, so I get space below it, py6, so I have space inside it. Set the text to be center, and I want the text to be white. The BG should be Airbnb, so we get a nice red color. Rounded -XL book. Oh yes, so there we have the book button. We can also have a hover effect on this. So hover BG Airbnb dark. Nice. And then below this one here again I want to show just a little summary of what you are going to pay, how many nights and similar, so we can hard code that for now. Div class MB-4, and I want to have a flex here because I want to show information on the left side and on the right side in this div. Justify between and align center. So then I just added a paragraph without classes here, and then for example say 200 times 3 nights, and then one more paragraph, and then we can say 800. Nice. Below here we can show the total, and I also want to have a fee here. So just copy this, and then instead of saying this we can say a Django BNB fee $40, which will be 5%. I will do a calculation on this later. And then we can have an HR for some separation. Oops, I'll self-close it like that. And then below here, let's copy one of these. And instead of saying margin bottom 4, now we can say margin top 4. And these clauses can be the same, but it can be font bold. Now we just say total, and total price will be of course 840. So all of this will be automatically calculated. The same when we change this will auto update, and I want to implement a calendar here, but that will come later when we're actually going to do the booking. Anyways, now we actually have the reservation sidebar. It's very simple for now, but it will become much more complicated when we start to implement the selection of the date range, booked dates and similar. So let's go to the to-do list and set this to done. And that was it for this time. If you have any questions about today's code, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll answer as soon as I can. See you in the next video.